I would now like to turn the floor over to one of our most visible YSEALI alumni, Jules Guiang, who in addition to being a YSEALI alumnus, is also a TV host for the Philippine government's TV network, PTV4. Jules?
Thank you so much, Matt. And of course, thank you to Ambassador Kim for your message. And I completely agree that since the onset of this pandemic, a lot of youth leaders have really proven that they are never too young to lead and make a difference. And some of these leaders are with us today to share their initiatives and best practices in engaging and encouraging fellow youth to also step up. So we now proceed to our first speaker. She is the founder of Limitless Lab and a fellow YSEALI alumna. Let's welcome Joey Cruz. Joey, go ahead. All right, so thank you so much to all our speakers. Let's give them a digital clap. Thank you so much for doing your initiatives. And these initiatives are truly hugely impressive initiatives. So thank you so much for doing this. And I'd like to quickly review some of the points that our speakers mentioned a while ago. Starting from Joey, she mentioned that youth participation is non-negotiable, especially during this pandemic, especially if you combine it with creative leadership. Meanwhile, Miggy from Accessi Wheels mentioned that he wants to make society more inclusive, so they're providing assured, convenient, and safe transportation for the vulnerable sector. During this pandemic, they were able to provide volunteer cars for this sector. Gab from Break the Fake wants to recognizes that there is an issue of fake news in this pandemic. So what they're doing right now is they're mainstreaming fact-checking, and they're providing a data online handbook for everyone. And lastly, Julian from helpfromhome.ph, they are providing an online platform that basically consolidates all assistance for frontliners, families at risk, and a map of hospital data. So thank you so much, Julian, and to your team for making it easier for people who want to help. So now, ladies and gentlemen and friends, we will now proceed to our question and answer. So before this webinar, we were able to collect questions from the YSEALI and American Spaces Philippines Network on mobilizing volunteers or maximizing their time at home. So our first question is actually for the ambassador. Ambassador, the question is from Harold Bangay from Davao. His question is, are there available online resources that the US government that we can avail while on quarantine? Ambassador?
Thanks very much, Jules. And thanks to Harold for sending in the question. Yes, we definitely have some online resources that you should check out. For example, American Spaces Philippines, which includes, of course, where we are, well, Matt and I are right now in the American Center at the Embassy, but also 14 American Corner locations throughout the country, as well as Education USA Philippines are holding virtual programs on different topics on their Facebook platform. So please check those out. Also, the Regional English Language Office is continuing to conduct massive open online courses. And the courses range from English for journalism to STEM to media literacy to business. These are wonderful courses that are available to you, so please look into them. More broadly, many US universities and museums, including the Smithsonian Institution, are offering website opportunities for virtual tours as well as free courses. So many opportunities for you to check out, Howard. I encourage you to look into all of these options.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for answering the question of Harold Bangay from Davao. Our next question is from John Emmanuel Magtibay and Girly de Guzman from the American Corner in Bacolod. Their question is, apart from promoting the cause and giving a monetary donation, what are the other ways that youth can help? Panelists, you may answer now.
I can start.
Go ahead.
So for Help from Home, what we do is, aside from monetary donations, we also are actually looking at people sharing their expertise. So we currently have more than 300 youth volunteers nationwide in our team already since we started. And these people are sharing their different expertise, whether it's with sharing your government connections or community organizing or analyzing data. All of these are things that young people can do in order to help as well as maybe you can create an initiative for your community. Or I think another pressing need is we need a lot of young people who are ready to brainstorm for the socio-economic plan that has to happen after the quarantine is lifted. So a more long-term solution can be created and the youth can participate.
All right, thanks, Julian. Anyone would like to add from the panelists? So for those who are promoting, okay, go ahead. All right,
Okay,
Gab.
yeah. I think one of the best ways for you to contribute as youth leaders is to really hyper localize the efforts that are happening on the national level. I think that we don't lack efforts in terms of like thinking about what policies to implement or what efforts to actually create. But in terms of like hyper localizing these interventions, I think that's what's really needed, because a lot of youth leaders are more aware actually in terms of like context specific solutions. They're the ones who are actually on the ground and they know what's happening in their own respective communities. So even if we, for example, create an online handbook that's being spoken in Tagalog or like made out in English, they can actually translate that in Visaya versions or whatever is specific to their respective communities. I think hyper localizing efforts that are happening at the national level and adopting the best practices is one of the best ways to go for you to be able to contribute effectively.
All right, thank you so much, Gab. Would like to answer next. Joey, would like to share?
Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I agree with the context of hyper-localizing. For example, for us in accessibles, those youth who are assigned to do the grocery shopping, can maybe coordinate with us so that they can carpool or provide ride. For example, a patient going dialysis along the way. So it's one way they can help or give back to the community as well. Because with the even with post GCQ, we all know that our public transportation will be working on partial operability. So if they do have a car, maybe they can share and coordinate with us every time they do their grocery shopping, so that at least we can help provide ride for a senior citizen or a person who will go to their checkups. So yes, thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Thank you, Miggy. Joey, would you like to add something? There's none. Okay. Ambassador Sang Kim, would you like to add some advice with regard to this question?
Sure. I would just reinforce the points that Gab and Miggy made. First of all, the importance of localization. So I would encourage people who want to volunteer to look at initiatives that are in or near their local communities, because I think you can quickly make direct impact if you choose the right initiatives near your area. The other is also this Miggy's important point about the spirit of volunteerism. I mean, there are so many opportunities for young people to volunteer and help out the broader community. So you should not limit yourself. There are many opportunities. And something even as straightforward as just sending words of encouragement to the frontliners. Because as you know, these are people who are sacrificing a great deal, risking their own health to help their communities, their friends, neighbors, etc. So I think anything you can do to encourage them and to support them would be very much appreciated.
Thank you, Ambassador. Our next question is from Bianca Gregorio and Ken Dizon. Their question is, for people who created fundraisers, did you encounter donation fatigue from the people? And if so, how did you overcome it? Joey?
Hi, thank you, Bianca, for the question. So when it comes to fundraisers and donor fatigue, yes, donor fatigue is very much real. So if you can notice, in the beginning of the ECQ, so donations are pouring in, people are willing to give, even corporations. But during the when we transition to the third week to the fourth week of the ECQ, we can see that donations are slowly decreasing. And it's totally normal. It's understandable because what was happening was it's basically dole out. So from our side, what we did was we're now ideating on ways on how we can transition to the new normal. and possibly teach new skills to vulnerable communities. No? So the team is also working now on new ideas on what kind of skills can we impart to vulnerable communities, such as drivers of public vehicles, to mothers who are now forced to stay at home. So I guess, on how we can approach donor fatigue, we need to be more creative, more innovative, and really get back to the drawing table. How can we empower people to make a new living in this new economy that we have?
Thank you for your points, Joey. Julian, would you like to add some points?
With regards to donor fatigue, I agree, with what Joey said. We have to be more creative in what the kinds of response that we do. Since Help from Home doesn't directly do fundraisers, this isn't something that really hounds the organization itself, but we've seen it in our partner initiatives. And what we've tried doing is really posting more things that can uplift the spirit for those who are donating, like showing them photos of what happened with their donations, sino ba yung natulungan, like who gets help, from all of these donations that they've provided, so that they feel that there's something that they really are contributing to, and it's not just an endless stream of needs that have to be met. So there has to be some sort of reward, at least for people to feel that, wow, my donation really is making a change.
Okay, thank you so much, Julian, for your inputs. We also have an answer from another alumnus, Val Vestil, who is the co-founder of Kapit Mindanao, and they are fundraising to assist far-flung areas in Mindanao. He mentioned that we did encounter donor burnout, and it was hard getting the numbers up, and we had to re-strategize from campaigning online to sending out personal letters to prospect donors. And we can't say we have overcome it already, but the new strategy really helped. So that's the input, once again, of Val Vestil from Kapit Mindanao. All right. Ambassador, do you have any questions to our panelists at the moment?
Thanks, Jules. I'm not sure questions, but I must want to thank all of our panelists for the amazing work they're doing. Tremendous initiative, and obviously their deep commitment is quite evident in how they're carrying out their initiatives. These are all great programs. Maybe I would just sort of highlight the key features of all of the programs. First of all, I think with Joey's initiative, I'm absolutely right that youth participation is non-negotiable. It's a wonderful quote, and I'm going to continue to use it in my speech. I hope you don't mind, Joey. I really think the real strength of the Philippines is its people, especially because it has such a dynamic and young population. So whether it's COVID-19 or whatever issue we're confronting, I think it's absolutely essential that young Filipinos like yourselves get engaged and get directly involved in finding solutions. Miggy, I'm starting to get very old, and I think back quite often through my life experiences. And of course, as a diplomat, I've lived in many different countries, the US, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Philippines, etc. And one thing I have discovered is that inclusive societies are much better societies. And this is, I think, why your initiative is so important, that providing access to those in need so that they can do the things that everybody else does, I think is going to lead to the Philippines becoming a much fairer, much better inclusive society. So kudos to you. And Gab, accurate information is always important, but especially in times like now, when people's lives actually depend on getting accurate information. So I applaud your efforts to eliminate fake news and deal with disinformation that's so prevalent still out there. And Julian, I think your initiative is an important reminder that we need to understand that the Philippines is more than a national capital region. And I think those of us who live in Manila tend to focus that this is it, but there's a lot more to the Philippines. And this is why I think it's so important that you have the wide reach, that it is actually a nationwide program that's helping citizens across the country, not just focus on the capital region. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Kim, for your inputs and tips to our panelists. At this moment, I'd like to proceed to our last question from my end, but I'm encouraging everyone who are watching right now to send in your questions in the Q&A box here on Zoom. Okay, so my question is, no, we have a question coming from American Corner Iloilo first. I'd like to ask this. Their question is, what is the biggest struggle that you encounter and how did you cope up to solve it during your initiatives? Any panelists could answer this question. And what was the biggest struggle that you encountered from the onset? Yes, Joey?
Yeah, maybe I can answer the question. No, so from the onset of the ECQ and the pandemic, so I guess the biggest challenge was really to raise over time, no? Because everyone's raising, we need something, we need solutions that are fast, we need solutions that are effective. No? So for us, what we did, when we were pressed with so many deadlines, we needed to launch these solutions at a very speedy deadlines. So what we did was we leveraged on these deadlines, we leveraged on these timelines, and called for volunteers so that we can deliver on time and accurately.
Okay, thank you so much, Joey. I'd like to proceed to my last question from my end. The question is, as we all know, stress level is high when you have been stuck at home for almost 2 months. Imagine, for almost 60 days. So any advice or tips you may give on self-care during this crisis? Go ahead, panelists.
Can I answer the question?
Go ahead, Julian.
I think what's really important these days, given the uncertainty of our world today, is not just the idea of self-care, but the idea of community care. It's so difficult to feel so isolated. It's so easy for us to feel that we are disconnected from other people because we are in our homes. But all the more is it important for us to keep connecting with other people, not just for our sake, for our mental health and our well-being, but also for other people who have it worse. Our workers who have lost their jobs, families who can't provide food for their children, and all the more we need to stay alert and also be more generous with what we have to help each other go through this crisis.
Thank you, Julian. Other panelists, please. Joey? Miggy. Okay, Joey, go ahead. Then Miggy.
Joey first.
Okay, go ahead, Miggy.
So for me, I think it's very good if we take time to reflect as well on what we do. Personally, on Accessibles, reading every night messages of the people we're able to help, and even testimonials from the drivers provide us a safe space that what we do really matters, especially if they recognize the value of they do, especially on the volunteer side. Because we had disappointments because it appeared during our first weeks that not all Filipinos do really understand the concept of volunteerism. So even though we're calling for volunteer drivers, what they really expect is that this is a job where we are supposed to pay them salaries. But as we move forward and along the way, they see that what we do and we try to advocate for is really good for them, and they're able to share their blessings. So, seeing that development right now in our week 7 inspired us to really move forward and hopefully even extend our efforts after ECQ. So that's my answer.
Thanks, Miggy. Joey, please.
So I'm a big fan of self-care because I believe that, we can't continue to serve our stakeholders, if we don't take care of ourselves first. So I guess my advice would be for youth leaders to sometimes, take a media break because news can be overwhelming as well. No? So when you feel like you're being drowned with negativity because of the news. So maybe take a day, disconnect, and then once you gathered your positive energy again, then you can get back to work. Of course, eat healthy and exercise.
Yeah, speaking of eating healthy, Joey, one of your posts on Facebook is currently trending because of your menu. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, lastly, Gab, you have something to share?
Yeah. Well, actually, Julian and Joey already said this. It's connect and then disconnect. So find a hobby to actually pursue, connect with your loved ones. On my case, I play video games a lot these days, and I think that's really one way for me to be able to connect with my friends because we actually organize daily matchups and tournaments. But I also allow myself to disconnect. And like what I've said in my social media platforms, after this pandemic, we're all going to be coming out as chefs, gardeners, whatever we have, that actually pursuing different passions and hobbies. And I think we're going to come out stronger after this pandemic. So, yeah.
Thank you, Gab. Ambassador, do you also have an advice regarding the self-care?
Sure. Thanks, Jules. And I think I agree with all of the recommendations that our panelists made. And I do believe that after we go through this very difficult experience, we will all come out healthier and stronger. This, for me, this is a welcome break from the incredibly busy pace of my life in the Philippines as the US ambassador. It's very rare for me to have free evenings to actually reflect on things. So I actually appreciate that, with the lockdown, that I have time to actually think about things beyond just immediate tasks and immediate questions and immediate challenges. And it's nice to be able to do so. I've also rediscovered the joy of reading things other than very dry reports about issues that we're dealing with. So I'm actually enjoying reading novels again after many years of just reading, as my daughters say, like incredibly boring, as way too serious stuff. And I think staying healthy is important, staying healthy both physically and mentally. But other than that, I agree with my panelists that it is important to stay connected. And fortunately, with internet and Zoom and everything else, we are able to do sessions like what we're doing now and keeping us connected and keeping us well informed.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for your piece of advice. Now I'll turn over to Matt for questions from the Zoom Q&A chat box. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you, Jules. So we have got a few questions coming in here on the Zoom Q&A. One of them that jumped out to me right away is a question related to a phrase that we've heard a lot recently, the new normal. This is something that's coming up increasingly. I know it's something that can be a little bit frightening for us, as a lot of us were pretty comfortable with the old normal. But this question comes from Reichman Legaspi, and it's related to, in terms of this pandemic causing challenges in terms of adjustment, how can the youth play a significant role in helping us transition to the new normal? Turn it over to the panel, first of all, if any of you have specific thoughts on that.
Can I answer?
Go ahead.
All right. So whether we like it or not, I feel like we can never go back to our normal before, right? So the trend now, at least in terms of businesses, would be to have a high-tech and low-touch kind of interactions. No, but that doesn't mean that we're emotionally disconnected or socially disconnected. So as young people, we are given the right tools, tech tools. We most of us are digital natives. So I guess as young people, what we can do is to help those businesses, for example, or people who are not used to new technologies, to transition to technologies such as Zoom or other technologies that we will need so much in this new normal.
Great, thank you.
I can answer. Yes. I guess on my part, I think that even the term new normal is frustrating because there is nothing normal about what we're going through right now. And as I agree with Joey in what she said, that it's frustrating that we can't go back to how things were before, but at the same time, we have to question ourselves, is this the opportunity then for us to create an alternative future for all of us. So given that the past also had its fair shares of difficulties and problems, I understand that it's very difficult for everyone to think of a better future given with how bleak what is happening around us is. But at the same time, maybe this is a chance for young people to bring in our expertise, our knowledge, our aspirations, especially since we are going to be the generation that is going to take over also. What kind of future do we want for our families, our friends, our communities? And maybe this is the time to start at least exploring those discussions with your friends, with people you trust, with people that you work with other people that you don't usually get to talk to, other communities, and see where you can chart the path forward.
It's very nice.
Great. Thank you, Joy and Giselle. I think you also helped answer another question that we had submitted here about helping the more vulnerable sector of society access some of these digital tools in our new normal. Do any of the other panelists have any other thoughts on this question?
Actually, this is just a reinforcement on what Joey said. We have to be able to actually facilitate those people who are not so knowledgeable with new technologies, like using mobile phones or accessing information through these new technologies. But more than that, we also have to really go outside our echo chambers. I think a lot of people, when we consume information, we just resonate whatever opinions that are happening within that circle, forgetting people who might actually benefit from that particular information. And we've seen new forms of normal coming in, like broadcast networks or media giants, for example, being, shifting to digital or bringing their news to digital. I think those kinds of changes have to be facilitated with um, proper inclusion of people who are underprivileged and understanding how to consume content properly. So our challenge for the youth is to go outside our echo chambers, go outside our bubbles, and really take on the challenge of really taking leadership in terms of like consuming these kinds of information.
Then I also like to add that maybe as part of the new normal as well, and being at home most of the time, I will be more tempted to watch Netflix, Korean dramas, and other things. So maybe instead of having the luxury to do that, maybe we can consider at specific times of days, we share our Wi-Fi or our internet to these people who don't have access, so that they'll have the capacity to learn. Hopefully, they have the smartphones to do that, so that we are getting disciplined, that we do our work or studies at home, but at the same time, uh, giving them access to learn new things, especially on the internet, instead of us benefiting from the benefits of a fiber internet connection. We share to them. So maybe it's about time that we do more sharing in this new normal. So yes.
Okay. Thank you, Miggy. That was, I think, a good answer to the question that just popped up for the panelists on the chat about ensuring continuity of education as we sit on this indefinite timeline. I think we have time for one more question. I think this one maybe is best directed initially to Gab. So on May 3rd, we celebrated World Press Freedom Day. The question is, how can we as youth help the media, independent and mainstream, and journalists report on the crisis effectively and safely while promoting critical thinking to limit the spread of rumors and misinformation?
Yeah, there are a lot of capacities. Like what I've said, on a personal level, you can actually approach the LGU, the local government, and actually itemize the platforms that they're using, making sure that the information is being brought closer to those people who are benefiting from such information. So it's really worth checking out what's the official Facebook pages of your local government, and even cross-verify if the information that is coming from the national government is being brought accurately down to the grassroots. I think that's one thing that you can really do. But secondly, you can facilitate, like what I've said earlier, cross-checking information is quite easier when it comes to because we're all now doing digital. So you can help report malicious information through us, for example, or to other fact-checking organizations like Verifiles and Rappler. These are ICANN verified organizations who can do fact-checking for you. If you find that these information are malicious or false, you can actually report to the proper authorities, and they can actually file a crime against it. They can do something about it. You can also participate in our competition that we're going to be launching soon on May 15. It's a vlogging competition. It's a mobile reporting and documentary on COVID-related fake news and disinformation. So we will bring it closer to the proper authorities for those who are spreading malicious rumors. But more than that, as a challenge for the youth, you really have to, like what I've said, go out your bubble and really penetrate the echo chambers, because we can't just be listening to ourselves. We really need to go out and bring the information closer to people who are vulnerable to this information.
Great, thank you, Gab. And now I think Jules actually has some additional information that he can share with us, collated from our YSEALI alumni that might provide some additional answers to some of the remaining questions out there. Jules?
Thank you, Matt, and also thank you to our friends who share their questions on our Q&A. So yeah, we collected some questions and answers actually from other YSEALI alumni on how youth can help in the country's recovery once community quarantine is lifted. So let me read some of them. So Jonna Villasante, the Supervising Legislative Staff Officer from the House of Representatives, a YSEALI Professional Fellowship alumna, she said that be active and involved in the national and local decision-making processes, considering that many issues were revealed by COVID crisis. To follow policy debates, submit position papers, use social media to encourage people to follow the law, and contribute in crisis management, practice crisis management communication, etc. Now we have another one from Trisha Furman, a teacher from Ateneo de Davao University, also an alumna. She said to initiate bayanihan acts for your communities, especially for those who have been hit the hardest during this pandemic. Coordinate with your LGUs in identifying these at-risk communities and create a mechanism to assist them as they go back to work or start to run their small businesses again. So those are some of the inputs from some of our alumni from different parts of the Philippines. So that's it. So thank you so much to everyone, especially to our panelists and to our viewers who are sharing their questions and answers here on Zoom and on Facebook. And that was truly a productive discussion on youth leadership in times of crisis, such as the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. And I do hope that the past hour was able to inspire our viewers both in Zoom and Facebook. So before we close, Ambassador, do you have any final words as we end this session? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this very informative and encouraging and inspiring session. This just reaffirmed my belief in the strength of YSEALI and the resilience and strength of all of you who are doing so much to help out your broader communities. So thanks for everything you're doing. Stay healthy and safe.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Sung Kim, for your message to everyone. And of course, once again, thank you so much for viewing and joining us in the conversation. And shout out to our fellow YSEALI alumni and the alumni of PYLP, KLES, CYLP, UGrad, and the American Chambers Business Leadership Program. In the screen right now, we have here a couple of links to follow if you're interested to join us. We encourage all of you to join YSEALI and be part of the growing family of the YSEALI here in the Philippines. And of course, the growing network of emerging leaders across Southeast Asia. So be part of YSEALI. Thank you so much. This has been Jules Guiang. And please stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you so much. See you soon.